Good afternoon, 4th grade. Today we're going to continue reading in our novel, James and the Giant Peach. Before we get started, you have a quick write. It says, have you ever seen a rainbow? What have you heard about how rainbows are created? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. Our focus question today is, how is the explanation of the rainbow similar or different in James and the Giant Peach in the African American myth? Our vocabulary words today are swarm, and that's when there is a large or a dense group of insects, especially flying ones. So this is a swarm of bees. The next word is mercy, and that's when you have compassion or forgiveness on someone, when you could punish them. And then the next word is colossal, and that's extremely large. Let's go ahead and turn the page in your notes, and we're on page 93 in our text. And so far, James and his friends, they're flying through the air, and they encountered some cloud men. And the cloud men, the centipede made fun of them, and so the cloud men chased them, and they got away. And so now they are still flying through the air, through the clouds at night. We're on page 93. We're going to be using our CSPS strategy. One by one, the travelers came out again onto the top of the peach and gazed carefully around. The moon still shining as brightly as ever, and there were still plenty of huge shimmering cloud mountains on all sides, but there was no cloud men in sight. "The peach is leaking!" shouted the old green grasshopper, peering over the side. "It's full of holes, and the juice is dripping out everywhere." "That does it!" cried the earthworm. "If the peach is leaking, then we shall surely sink." "Don't be a bad word," the centipede told him. "We're not in the water now." "Oh, look!" shouted the ladybug. "Look, look, look! Over there!" Everyone swung around to look. In the distance and directly ahead of them, they now saw a most extraordinary sight. It was a kind of arch, a colossal, curvy-shaped thing that reached high into the sky and came down again at both ends. The ends were resting upon a huge, flat cloud that was as big as a desert. We'll stop right there because we have information about the setting. In box 2, you would write, "The insects and James are traveling through the clouds at night in the peach." Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, we will write down this sentence on page 93. One by one, the travelers came out onto the top of the peach and gazed carefully around. The moon was shining as brightly as ever, and there were still plenty of huge shimmering cloud mountains on all sides. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Let's keep reading to figure out what the insects see in the sky. Go ahead and turn the page. "Now, what in the world is that?" asked James. "It's a bridge! It's an enormous hoop cut in half. It's a giant horseshoe standing upside down." "Stop me if I'm wrong," murmured the centipede, going white in the face. "But might those not be cloud men climbing all over it?" There was a dreadful silence. The peach floated closer and closer. "They are cloud men. There are hundreds of them, thousands, millions. I don't want to hear about it," shrieked the poor blind earthworm. "I'd rather be on the end of a fishhook and used as bait than come upon those terrible creatures again." "I'd rather be fried alive and eaten by a Mexican," wailed the old green grasshopper. "Please keep quiet," whispered James. "It's our only hope." They crouched very still on top of the peach, staring at the cloud men. The whole surface of the cloud was literally swarming with them. There were hundreds more above, climbing about on the monstrous, crazy arch. "But what is that thing?" whispered the ladybug, "and what are they doing to it?" "I don't care what they are doing to it," the centipede said, scuttling over the tunnel entrance. "I'm not staying up here. Goodbye." But the rest of them were too frightened or too hypnotized by the whole affair to make a move. "Do you know what?" James whispered. "What?" they said. "What?" "That enormous arch, they seem to be painting it. They've got pots of paint and big brushes. You look!" He was quite right. The travelers were close enough now to see that this was exactly what the cloudmen were doing. They all had huge brushes in their hands, and they were splashing the paint into the great curvy arch in a frenzy of speed, so fast in fact that in a few minutes the whole of the arch became covered with the most glorious colors: red, blues, greens, yellows, and purples. "It's a rainbow!" everyone said at once. "They're making a rainbow!" "Oh, isn't it beautiful? Just look at those colors!" "Centipede," they shouted, "you must come up and see this." They were so enthralled by the beauty and brilliance of the rainbow that they forgot to keep their voices low any longer. The centipede poked his head cautiously out of the tunnel entrance. "Well, well, well," he said, "I've always wondered how those things were made. But why all the ropes? What are they doing with those ropes?" "Good heavens, they are pushing it off the cloud!" cried James. "There it goes! They are lowering down to earth with ropes." "And I'll tell you something else," the centipede said sharply. "If I'm not greatly mistaken, we ourselves are going to bump right into it." "Bless my soul, he's right," the old green grasshopper explained. We'll stop right there because we have information about the character. In box 1A, we would write, "James and the insects realize that the cloudmen are painting a rainbow and lowering it into the sky with ropes." Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. For the quote, we would write down this sentence on page 95. "It's a rainbow," everyone said at once. "They are making a rainbow." Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Go ahead and turn the page. The rainbow was now dangling in the air below the cloud. The peach was just below the level of the cloud, and it was heading directly toward the rainbow, traveling rather fast. "We are lost!" Miss Spider cried, wringing her feet again. "The end has come." "I can't stand it," wailed the earthworm. "Tell me what's happening." "We're going to miss it," shouted the ladybug. "No, we're not." "Yes, we are." "Yes, yes, no." "Oh, my heavens." "Hold on, everybody," James called out. And suddenly there was a tremendous thud as the peach went crashing into the top part of the rainbow. This was followed by an awful splintering noise as the enormous rainbow snapped right across the middle and became two separate pieces. The next thing that happened was extremely unfortunate. The ropes that the cloudmen had been using for lowering the rainbow got tangled up with the silk strings that went up from the peach to the seagulls. The peach was trapped. Panic and pandemonium broke out among the travelers, and James Henry Trotter, glancing up quickly, saw the faces of 1,000 furious cloudmen peering down at him over the edge of the cloud. The faces had almost no shape at all because of the long white hairs that covered them. There were no noses, no mouths, no ears, no chins, only the eyes were visible in each face, two small black eyes glinting malevolently through the hairs. Then came the most frightening thing of all. One cloudman, a huge hairy creature who must have been 14 feet tall at least, suddenly stood up and made a tremendous leap off the side of the cloud, trying to get to one of the silk strings above the peach. James and his friends saw him go flying through the air above him, his arms outstretched in front of him, reaching for the nearest string, and they saw him grab it and cling to it with his hands and legs. And then, very, very slowly, hand over hand, he began to come down the string. We'll stop right there because we have information about the problem. In box 3A, you would write, "The peach crashed into the rainbow and broke it." This made the cloudmen very upset, and they started to attack the peach. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, we would write down this sentence on page 96. The peach was trapped. Panic and pandemonium broke out among the travelers, and James Henry Trotter, glancing up quickly, saw the faces of 1,000 furious cloudmen peering down at him over the edge of the cloud. Press pause to write down the quote and play when you're ready to keep reading. We're in the middle of page 97. "Mercy, help, save us!" cried the ladybug. "He's coming down to eat us!" wailed the old green grasshopper. "Jump overboard!" "Let's eat the earthworm first," shouted the centipede. "There's no good eating me. I'm full of bones like a kipper." "Centipede!" yelled James. "Quickly, bite through the string, the one he's coming down on." The centipede rushed over to the stem of the peach and took the silk string in his teeth and bit through it with one snap of his jaws. Immediately, far above him, a single seagull that seemed to come away from the rest of the flock and go flying off with a long string trailing from its neck. And clinging desperately to the end of the string, shouting and cursing with fury, was a huge hairy cloudman. Up and up he went, swinging across the moonlit sky. And James Henry Trotter, watching him with delight, said, "My goodness, he must weigh almost nothing, with all for one seagull to be able to pull him up like that. He must be like hair in air." The rest of the cloudmen were so flabbergasted at seeing one of their company carried away in this manner that they let go of the ropes they were holding, and then, of course, down went the rainbow, both halves of it together, tumbling toward the earth below. This freed the peach, which at once began sailing away from that terrible cloud. But the travelers were not in the clear yet. The infuriated cloudmen jumped up and ran after them along the cloud, pelting them mercilessly with all sorts of hard, horrible objects. Empty paint buckets, paint brushes, step ladders, stools, saucepans, frying pans, rotten eggs, dead rats, bottles of hair oil, anything those brutes could lay their hands on, came raining down upon the peach. One cloudman, taking very careful aim, tipped a gallon of thick purple paint over the edge of the cloud, right onto Centipede himself. The centipede screamed with anger. "My legs!" he cried. "They are all sticking together. I can't walk, and my eyelids won't open. I can't see, and my boots are ruined." But for the moment everyone was far too busy dodging the things that the cloudmen were throwing to pay any attention to Centipede. "The paint is drying," he moaned. "It's going hard. I can't move my legs. I can't move anything." "You can still move your mouth," the earthworm said, "and that's a great pity." "James," bawled the centipede, "please help me. Wash off the paint, scrape it off, anything." It seemed like a long time before the seagulls were able to pull the peach away from the horrible rainbow cloud. But they managed it at last, and then everybody gathered around the wretched centipede and began arguing about the best way to get the paint off his body. We'll stop right there because we have the solution. In box 4A, you would write, "The seagulls carried the peach away from the angry cloudmen." Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, you would write down this quote on page 99. "It seemed like a long time before the seagulls were able to pull the peach away from that horrible rainbow cloud." Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. The paragraph says, "How does James respond to challenge? What does his response reveal about his character?" So we want you to think that when they are being attacked by the cloudmen, what does James suggest that they do, and does it work? What does this tell you about what kind of person he is?